Hi, thanks for understanding about the change in class schedule this week. I really appreciate your understanding about my family situation and hope that this presentation helps you get to the next stage of the class. Today I'm going to talk about collection dimensions and purpose, and my agenda is to talk a little bit about dimensions of a collection. I'm not going to tell you what they are, rather we're going to think about this. It's going to be a thought experiment, and we're going to talk about it on the Thursday class. And then we are going to talk about libraries' purpose and value, the value that libraries bring, especially public libraries, but you can adapt the characteristics that we're talking about to almost any kind of collection. Very quickly, I'm going to introduce the idea of content versus package, and then a couple of reminders for the coming week. So what is a collection? Take a look at this photograph. Is this a collection? Write down what you think makes this a collection. Or if you don't think it's a collection, why is it not a collection? Is this a collection? Do the same thing. Think about what makes this, what's the artifacts that are in this photograph, a picture of a collection and not just not maybe the same animal that the previous thing was. So I want you to do a compare and contrast between these two photographs. Which one is a collection and why is that one a collection? Here's another picture of a collection. This is more of a library collection. This is from a Content DM collection. We'll talk more about that as we go through the semester. It will come up again and again. And it, is a formal library project. So what makes this a collection, if you think it is, versus what those other photographs depicted. So what we're looking at here are dimensions of a concept. So here's this concept called a collection, right? This class is called collection management. So what does a collection actually mean? And so we're looking at these dimensions. Looking at dimensions is a means to analyze and describe what a particular phenomenon or concept is versus what it is not. So when you say what a box is, you also need to be able to describe what is not a box. And so describing the dimensions of something distinguishes it from all other items in the universe. And obviously, for most items, there's always an element of crossover. Not everything is, perfectly separated from other topics. We recognize a box, even though some characteristics may change. We know when it's a colored box versus a plain paper box. So, but there are things about boxes in general that we can describe. So I want you to think about how we recognize a collection. Write down the dimensions of a collection for yourself, and then we're going to talk about it in the next class. So libraries, as you found in reading the Collection Management Basics book, Evans and Saponaro talk a lot about what a library's purpose is. It's embedded in the history of building, creating, maintaining, and sharing. Sometimes we share collections. Sometimes we build them for very, very private use, right? There are private libraries. LIS philosopher Ranganathan put forth 5 laws. And there they are. The library is a growing organism. So which of these do you think pertain to collections? I would argue that all of them do. You cannot have a library without a collection of something that readers, viewers, listeners want to interact with. And they can do any one of those actions, but they are interacting with, sometimes we talk about the information content, but in some ways, information is too narrow a concept. It's very embedded in education, scholarly knowledge, etc. But when you put in arts and entertainment as well, you start to see that the world of artifacts of a library and a library's purpose has multiplied over the years. Ranganathan was writing in the 1930s, and collections were primarily about books, although libraries always had other objects. Even in the 1930s, lots of libraries had record collections, and they had sheet music collections, and you could go on and on. Manuscript collections, which are a little bit different than the books that are created from manuscripts. So all of those 5 laws of a library's purpose have something to do with the collections that we create. We build a collection for readers. We have to know who those readers might be. How do we know? We have to look at things like demographics. And one important way to do that is with the public library survey that's done every 2 years. And you can go and look at the public library survey. Here's some statistics from public libraries in North Carolina. There are 80 public libraries in North Carolina. Talks about how many librarians there are. I compare it to New York. There are 756 public libraries in New York. There are 4,000 librarians in New York's public libraries. And of course, there's a difference in the number of users in those 2 places. So you can look at who users are by just numbers. How many African Americans use public libraries in a particular town? How many women use public libraries? How many children under 16? How many people in the 18 to 25 age bracket? That, by the way, is the age bracket all libraries want to target right now. So, and the Public Library Survey looks at library use. This is the fiscal year 2013 library use indicators. And you can see the 1 year, 4 year, and 10-year trend. Visitation is down from 4 years before, but up compared to 10 years ago. Circulation is a little bit down over that same time period. But look at program attendance. Look at public access computer use. It wasn't even measured 10 years ago. And it's, still, it was positive in FY 2013. It's interesting that 2009, it was down. I don't quite understand that because that was sort of the height of the recession. But you can look at things like library use of a particular library. And I'm going to say this again later, but your project A should be thinking about a model that you're basing your fictitious library on. And you can pick a particular town in North Carolina, you can pick a particular school in North Carolina and use that as your model to build the project. Here's budgets, and those have basically been going down, 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 down. For a number of years. There's also a survey for academic libraries done by the Department of Education Library Statistics Program. There's a link in the slides that you can link on. Here's UNCG's statistics, how many books they own, how many ebooks they added in this particular year. I don't remember what the year was. How many audio visuals you added. What this doesn't measure, measures what you own. It doesn't measure what you lease. And that's getting to be more and more important. When we talk about acquisitions in a couple of weeks, we will see that component of collections is growing and growing and growing. So when Evans and Saponaro talk about the purpose of a library, they focus on whether people in the U.S. read. But is that now the primary purpose of libraries? So mean registered borrowers is pretty much down. It depends on the size of the library. Notice that the trend in larger libraries was up for 2014. All libraries was sort of even between 2013 and 2014, but almost equal to 2009. And very small library usage was up, but sort of medium-sized library usage was down. So, so remember, we are in competition with a lot of people Medium-sized libraries often serve the sort of middle class to upper middle class, people who have resources, and they can purchase their own resources now quite easily without having to go to the library, without having to share with other people. And so I think that's why you see a trend in very small libraries being up, very large libraries being up, but sort of medium libraries being down. But that's just my interpretation of this. And it affects how you're going to maybe construct what collections your library has. So figure 8, this is programs. So this is collections. So the previous slide was collections, and this is programs. Up, 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 up. So what is a library's purpose? Is it just the collection, or does the collection form a nucleus around which programs are done? That's something that you have to consider. Print circulation is down. Programming is up. Electronic material circulation is up. Programming is up. And just to re-look at library use, program attendance, up, up, up. So do the services, the programs that you offer affect what you collect? Yes, you have to support the programs that you bring in. So if you, for instance, let's say you do a program where you invite an author to come and to your library. Don't you have to have the books that that library, that author wrote? And, wouldn't it be good to have discussion groups that meet maybe after the author speaks? So I would say yes. Even programming begins with a collection. And that collection might be people, things, or books. Knowing, in some ways, libraries are building a collection of people. By knowing who your users are, you're understanding, you're making a collection of who they are. So if you're doing programming in a makerspace, what is your collection? I thought of a few things. Lego blocks, knitting needles, yarn, but you're still making a collection. In fact, when I was at the American Library Association this past weekend, it's been a very strange week. I actually saw some things that talked about how you keep track of a makerspace collection. It's a lot of little pieces. So do you keep track of the box, or do you keep track of each piece? There's some really interesting questions around that. Information is no longer scarce. Scarcity usually drives the price up of any material that you have. So different measures of value must be decided. We can't compare libraries on how big their collections are. When I came into the field, it was a big deal because, Harvard had 1 million books, and anybody else who had 1 million books, that was a big deal because obviously you were just like Harvard if you had 1 million books. But if you had 1 million crummy books that don't ever get checked out, then that isn't a way to compare yourselves. But if you have 1 million users, if you have 1 million people coming to programs, if you're serving your users in the way that you need, but you still have to think about what that collection is. Remember that the first libraries were started so that manuscripts and ideas could be shared. And it's that sharing and that relationship building that is the basis of what we do. So providing a space for sharing to happen may be more important than the contents of the collection. But the collection is still there as a draw. And I'm sorry, that's a telephone ringing. The most important component of a collection may be the people who use it. So that's really important for Project A, because you have to understand what the purpose of your library is. For the project, you have to understand that you're building a library of 4 or 5 or 2 or 3 different kinds of collections. You're building a library from those collections, and you're serving a particular group, and you have to tell me what those groups are. And libraries in this particular day and age have to manage this change that's happening. We have to consider what our basic assumptions are. Remember that a lot of material that we have in our collection, we won't have it forever. We're going to have it for the length of a LIS, and then we're going to be giving it back. So things are coming in and out of our collections all the time. We're not providing collections for the long term. We're instead providing access when people need it. And there's a lot of digitization going around from the print materials that we have on our shelves, but there's still a gazillion things to do. I was in Europe for my vacation 2-3 weeks ago now, and I was in some libraries that have unique print materials in 4 different languages that I saw, and materials that are in the original Latin and the original Greek and illuminated manuscripts. All of that has yet to be digitized, and there's just so much work to do in that direction. And the one very important aspect of our collections is changing. The formats that the materials are in pose new challenges. So managing born digital assets like websites, like even our own computer files, like the social media artifacts that we create, all of those things pose new challenges for what a collection is and how it serves people. So we're going to talk about content and formats increasingly more and more. I just want to remind you about the WorldCat kind of quiz, the formats quiz that I put up. You saw a myriad of formats. We're going to talk more next time about how how stuff gets into those formats and how they affect how we collect them. We'll talk about scholarly communication, knowledge products, and artistic works, and figure out how we identify what is worth having in our collection. So I keep trying to think of better and better ways to describe Project Part A. I still get a lot of questions, and I hope I'm not contradicting myself. I hope I'm just saying it in a better way. So consider who your audience is for the library and give me a basic outline of who will use it. What are the individual collections that make up the library? Who will work on each collection? And what platform will you use to build the library? You can put that in a document. Only one person has to upload it. And then it's there for the whole group. It is a group assignment. So for next time, we'll look at the disciplines and the materials that they produce. We'll talk about the spiritualist library. I have a reading for you. And I will finally get to meet you face to face. And thank you. Thanks to all of you who sent condolences. I appreciate it very much. And I will see those who can attend on Thursday. And remember, July 4th is a holiday. We will not have a synchronous class that night. We will have a synchronous class on July 6th. That's the Thursday. So we're having 2 Thursday synchronous classes. And thank you again for your patience. See you next time.